When the final siren sounds, the people who make it through aren't the ones with the biggest gear collections. They're the ones who built a toolbox that works under stress, scarcity, and failure. On the final siren, we don't talk about fantasy survival. We talk about what keeps you alive when systems collapse, logistics disappear, and help is not coming. This guide is about building a survivalist toolbox that earns its weight, functions when conditions are brutal, and supports real decision-making in the field. The survivalist toolbox starts with priorities, not gear. Every effective toolbox is built around survival order. Breathing, bleeding control, body temperature, water, calories, and security. Tools only matter if they serve one of these needs. A knife that can't process fuel or food is decoration. A fire starter that fails in wind and rain is a liability. When choosing tools, use a 3-to-1 usefulness rule. Every item should solve at least 3 problems or support 3 tasks. A fixed blade knife, for example, cuts cordage, processes food, and shapes wood for shelter. If a tool solves only one narrow task, it must do that task exceptionally well to justify its space. Cutting tools form the backbone of real-world survival work. A survivalist without reliable cutting capability is already behind. One primary fixed-blade knife should be paired with one secondary cutting option. The ratio that works is one heavy-use blade to one precision or redundancy blade. Your primary knife handles wood batoning, shelter construction, and food prep. Your secondary blade, whether a folding knife or small backup fixed blade, protects you when the primary is lost or damaged. Steel choice matters less than heat treatment and edge geometry. A slightly softer blade that can be resharpened in the field beats brittle steel that chips when stressed. Fire tools should be layered, not trusted individually. Fire failure kills faster than hunger in most environments. A proper fire setup follows a 2+1 system. 2 primary fire starting methods backed by 1 emergency method. A ferro rod paired with stormproof matches covers most conditions. The emergency option could be char cloth, fat wood shavings, or chemical fire tabs. The practical ratio is 1 ignition tool for every expected 7 days in the field, with redundancy built in. Practice lighting fires in rain, wind, and cold. If you can't light a fire in under 2 minutes with cold hands, your setup needs revision. So, water tools matter more than containers, and honestly, treatment beats storage every time. Carrying water is really just a temporary fix. But making water safe? That's permanent. The toolbox rule here is treatment first, transport second. 1 primary treatment method, like a gravity filter, should always be backed up by a chemical or boiling method as a backup. The working ratio is 1 litre of treatment capacity per hour of movement in temperate climates. In hot regions, you'll want to double that expectation. Collapsible containers, well, they outperform rigid ones because they adapt to changing loads. And always pair filtration with pre-filtering using cloth or a bandana to extend the tool's life. Shelter tools? Well, they should always favour speed over comfort. Shelter construction tools must allow rapid deployment, especially when you're fatigued. Paracord, a compact tarp, and a cutting tool will always outperform heavy tents when mobility matters. The key ratio is time to shelter versus weather exposure. If you can't establish a basic wind and rain shelter in under 10 minutes, your system's just too complex. Practice tying 3 knots only, a bowline, a trucker's hitch and a clove hitch. These handle nearly every shelter scenario without wasting time on fancy techniques. Medical tools really ought to be trauma-focused, not just for convenience. In survival conditions, the most likely medical threats are bleeding, infection, and injury management. A survivalist medical kit follows a 60-30-10 ratio. That's 60% trauma control like tourniquets and pressure dressings, 30% wound care, including antiseptics and bandaging, and 10% comfort items. Training, though, matters more than supplies. A tourniquet you don't know how to apply under stress is just dead weight. Practice self-application with one hand and, limited visibility. Navigation tools should always assume technology failure, right? GPS is helpful, sure, until the batteries die or, the signals just vanish. A physical map and compass must remain in your toolbox, not as a backup, but as your primary navigation. The rule is simple. Make one navigational decision every hour of movement and confirm it by matching your surroundings to the map. Learn to pace count and measure distance without relying on electronics. And honestly, a small notebook and pencil will support navigation, planning and after-action notes, especially when your memory starts to fail under stress. Security tools should emphasize awareness before force. Most survival situations, believe it or not, are won by avoidance. Tools that enhance observation, communication and deterrence matter a lot more than weapons alone. A flashlight with a high lumen burst mode, for example, serves navigation, signaling, and even disorientation. The working ratio is awareness to defense at 5-to-1. If you find yourself spending more time preparing for confrontation than avoiding it, well, you're misallocating both energy and risk. Maintenance tools, honestly, keep the toolbox alive longer than your supplies ever will. Sharpening stones, duct tape, repair needles, and spare cordage, they all extend the lifespan of every other tool you carry. 1 ounce of maintenance gear can save you 10 pounds of replacements, no joke. Schedule tool checks every 72 hours while you're in the field. Small failures, if ignored, compound quickly and can really catch you out. A survivalist toolbox is not static. It evolves through use, failure and, honest assessment. Test your setup in controlled hardship before real hardship tests you. Strip out what doesn't earn its place and double down on what works under pressure. If this guide has sharpened your thinking and reinforced what truly matters, subscribe to the Final Siren, share this with someone building their own survival system, and stay prepared for the moment when theory ends and reality, takes over.